And I was fighting my body in that I was frustrated with it and trying to like beat it into submission, working against the way that God created me. My mindset was I have to fix my body because it's wrong.
Welcome back to part 2 of Fasting, Food, and Faith. I'm Dr. Sam Sims, nurse anesthesiologist.
And I'm Brianne Sims, RN. Let's talk about women and fasting. I have done things the right way and I have done things the wrong way. And so now you're going to learn from my mistakes and hopefully you can fast the right way as a woman. And so I want to talk about some of the wrong way that I fasted in the past, having done this for a long time and being taken on such a long journey with God of beginning fasting and thinking that I had to fast exactly how my husband fasted, like that we could just fast the same and we would be fine. That pushed my body to some extremes that was not super healthy looking back on it. But I didn't understand that at the time because I thought, well, fasting is just great for you, so I should just be able to fast as long as I want and I'll be fine. But that is not the case because I was not fasting for my cycle. Because during your 30 to 40 years of fertility, you have a monthly cycle and it's generally 28 days, which is like 4 sets of 7, right? Which actually, now that I say that out loud, like that's God's number of perfection. That's
7.
That's very interesting. Yeah, and 4 times 7, which just means that it's perfect upon perfect upon perfect. Like what he created was perfect. Ladies, the wrong way to fast is trying to fast like a man. Or anyone else for that matter.
Or trying to do a fast you have not been called to do.
Exactly.
Yes.
Or expecting that the way you feel and your results are going to be the same as a man. So we were always trying to do long fasts together, which was great in a lot of ways, but also my mindset in that was a little skewed. And so I was very strict and sort of religious about I could not eat while I was fasting or it wasn't a fast.
Mm-hmm.
And God really had to shift my perspective on that because it's not about what is going in and out of your body. It's about the posture of your heart and your mind and what you're surrendering to him in that moment because he sees our heart and he sees my intention to want to fast before him for however many days, nights, whatever it is. But he also understands that he created me differently than he created a man. And it's okay. And it's actually a good thing. And so women go through 4 basically seasons every month. We go through winter, spring, summer, and fall. And so we have to treat our bodies that way. Where men's bodies are more of a 24-hour cycle, ours are on a 28-day cycle. So it's much more drawn out. And there are different ways of supporting our hormones during that period. So
and I think as far as fasting, like when we first started to fast, we were very rigid, and part of it I think is because one, we were finally finding something that was being successful for us to lose weight, and we followed these rules very strictly because we didn't really know where the areas that you could kind of diverge and still be okay. And so as we've learned and grown and done this longer, we realize that these fasts don't have to be done like a specific rule-based, this is the only way to fast. Exactly. I remember hearing people like, well, I take a fish oil when I fast. I'm like, well, you're not supposed to do that. And it would be very rich or not, are people getting upset about those things? And that's, we did the research and started finding out, we were just basically just multivitamins and water to begin with. And then as we started to come across research about fasting fuels and people, it didn't affect your fast, people were having long-term benefits.
Going more into research on like blood sugar and insulin and what elevates it, what doesn't.
Right. But also praying about whether we were supposed to fast that way and realizing that, yes, we can get the benefits, the health benefits of fasting and the spiritual benefits of fasting if we bring God into it. Yeah. And say, hey, we're going to have you help us guide this on this fast. And when you take out that, it's freeing. And it's also like but you still want to be like, the rules. And so like, I don't want people to know that I didn't fast the right way. It's like, God's like, you're fasting the way I want you to fast. I want you to fast. This is how I want you to fast this time. You can make fasting a man-made performance really easily.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's exactly what I was doing. And I was fighting my body in that I was frustrated with it and trying to like beat it into submission, like working against the way that God created me. My mindset was, I have to fix my body because it's wrong. Like, you know what I mean? And I
Sure.
just was working out of this wrong mindset and just not thinking about my body positively the way that God thinks about it. Like being angry with the fact that I had to have a period every month, or being frustrated that it was harder for me to lose weight, or, just like, or being frustrated with the fact that I was so hungry all the time. Just a lot of things that I knew were specific to me just because I was a woman. And I'll get upset about it and just basically frustrated with my body, and that created a lot of stress and angst and frustration in myself, that I was carrying these burdens, believing these lies from the enemy that I didn't need to. Those were just all lies that were weighing me down in my fasting. And the first few long fasts that I did, I can't remember if it was the 10-day or the 14-day. I think after the first 14-day fast that I did with you, I skipped a period. And the fast was very difficult. I was supremely exhausted throughout the whole thing, and it was just really, really difficult because we didn't know what we didn't know back
Sure.
then.
We broke our fast the wrong way. We blew up like ticks afterwards, and
We made a lot of mistakes with that fast. That was a fast that was like, I wanted to do it. We were fasting, praying for some breakthrough and different things, but since then, God has worked on my heart a lot and shifted my perspective of myself and my body, and how He wants to care for me and take care of me the way that He created me to be, instead of me trying to somehow beat my body into submission to be the way that I think it should be or the world thinks it should be. So there's a lot of surrender that goes into that, obviously, as you begin to do more and more fasts with God and learn to work with His Holy Spirit and the way that He wants you to fast, instead of just being so rigid about things. One of the other fasts that I did that was really rough, that was over a cycle, I was not taking in enough electrolytes, and so my cramps were like 10 times as bad as normal because I didn't have enough magnesium, calcium, sodium, and all of that for my uterus to work the way that it should. And so that was miserable. So I also learned that you need extra support if you're going to fast over your cycle as far as electrolytes are concerned. Or you need to have lab work or treat the symptoms that you're having. If something is going differently than it normally does and you're fasting, then you need to look at why. And you need to dig a little bit deeper so that you're not miserable. Because God does not want you to be miserable while you're fasting. Okay, with some caveat. I mean, yes, you're not eating, so obviously that's going to be a form of suffering because
you're humbling yourself.
You're humbling yourself before God. But physically, He wants to take care of you, and He still wants you to flourish in that fast, even though you're surrendering that hunger to Him. Okay? If that makes sense. When I'm listening to God, when I am fasting, He takes care of me. What I want to talk about is fasting for your cycle. So what He has showed me, because I have now done a 40-day fast, but it was not a complete fast from food, because He walked me into that and taught me that He wanted to take care of me. He wanted my body to flourish, and He wanted to provide for me. And He wanted to teach me how to care for my body in a long fast like that as a woman, because He's not expecting me to do things exactly the same as my husband or even as another woman faster. But He did teach me how to care for my body. So I am going to share that with you. And it boils down to this. You do need to fuel your body if you are still in your childbearing years. Basically meaning you're not pre-period or post-period. If you're still having a monthly cycle, you still do need to care for your body during that time. And that looks like eating a meal once in a while. There's a specific set of hormones and different fluctuations that's going on in your body in each part of your cycle. And so the first part of your cycle is your period. So day 1, your period starts, right? So during that time of your period, you may have to eat a few things because you're shedding the complete lining of one of your organs. And so you will need extra fluids, extra electrolytes, and you may need some extra fat or protein while you are fasting during that time. So you really have to be prayerful about that. If He's calling you to a long fast, what that would look like, or if He's calling you to a shorter fast, it might be that you need to fast during certain days of your cycle. So once your period ends, then your body is preparing and leading up to ovulation. And this is a perfect time for fasting, leading up to ovulation, where your cycle has ended, but you have not yet ovulated. That is the best window, I would say, during your entire cycle. In your 28-day cycle, that's the best window for fasting for women. So if you want to do a longer fast from 1 to 7 days, somewhere in there, that's the ideal time. Now, when you get to ovulation, you need support. And God was showing me a picture of this right before this podcast. He was like, you don't pull up a plant right when it's in the middle of fruiting, do you? No. You feed it water, you feed it nutrients until it's done fruiting, until you can pick that fruit. So it needs nutrients to perform optimally, because that's when your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all those things are highest. That's when you're at your highest performance. So if there's a lot of things that you need to accomplish during that ovulation time, it's the time when you're feeling the most strength or strong during your cycle. And you want to feed that strength. You want to feed your body when you're ovulating in order for those hormones to be optimal. Okay? Then you have another small window of like 3 to 5 days that is optimal for fasting after ovulation. That's your like fall season, right? And so there's another little window there. But then the days leading up to your period, the 5 to 7 days before you start bleeding again, that is a time that you want to be feeding. Because every single day during my fast, before my period, God will have me eat something. Every single night before that, whether it was like a hamburger or an egg or some bacon or something. A lot of times it was protein and fat to fuel my body for the upcoming cycle, because your hormones start to dip and you need fuel for your body in order to have your period. In order for your body to operate optimally and have that cycle, you have to be fed, basically. And so during that 40-day fast, he had me eat every night leading up to my period, and then a few nights during my period, and then I would go for long portions again after the cycle. But during ovulation, when you're very hungry and you're needing high amount of calories to fuel your body during that fruiting season, you need some food probably. Then you go back into more days of fasting. Then you go back into preparing your body for shedding the lining. So there is an ebb and flow to your cycle and to fasting. Those are my recommendations. That's how I felt optimally during my fast and cared for, and I still had a regular cycle. I didn't have any issues with. It helps align my hormones, my sleep, all the things. And so if you are wanting to fast for your cycle, that's what I would recommend based on my own experience with God and what He's showed me over the last few years. And if you want to dive deeper into that and know all the nitty gritty, there's a great book out there called Fast Like a Girl by Dr. Mindy Pels. Not sure how to say her last name. Anyway, she has written basically the same thing that God showed me on my 40-day fast in her book. And she gives a lot of great foods, fasting, fuels, and non-fasting to feed your hormone cycle as a woman. And so I would highly recommend that if you want to get into it. But in simple terms, that's basically fasting for your cycle in one section. That's basically fasting for your cycle. Basically, feed over ovulation, feed leading up to your cycle, maybe some during your cycle, and use those 2 fasting windows for optimal performance. Now, that being said, on the days that you're feeding, you can do intermittent fasting. Like I do intermittent fasting basically every day. Most of the time I don't eat breakfast. Sometimes I don't eat breakfast or lunch. Sometimes I just skip lunch and eat breakfast and dinner. Sometimes I just skip dinner. I eat when it works for me, when I'm craving something, but I do also eat a lot of protein and fat. My diet is pretty high in protein and fat and lower in carbs and sugar. That's basically non-existent except for special occasions. But I do eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Yeah.
The simple
But
form, yeah.
yes, simple, like processed.
Right.
I don't generally eat. Because in the perimenopausal state that I'm in, they don't pair well with my hormones. It basically meaning that when I eat processed carbs and sugar, it causes huge fluctuations in my hormones and headaches and hot flashes and like sleepless nights and all kinds of things. And so I just tend to avoid those because I just don't like the way they make me feel while I'm at this stage of my life. So proteins, fats, healthy whole carbohydrates like vegetables and root vegetables even too, and fruit. have been my go-to. That has helped a lot stabilizing my hormones during this huge shift that my body's going through. What I was saying is that you can still do intermittent fasting every day during your cycle. I would just recommend eating at least once a day during those 2 periods of your cycle, basically leading up to your period, leading up to menstruation and over ovulation. I would recommend eating something on those days in order to keep your cycle and your hormones the way that God intended for them to be. Because it's a beautiful thing that He created your body to produce life. And so it's okay to support that.
And I would just say that, like, you may find that, that's really good advice, but you also may find for you specifically on that specific fast, you may not be supposed to eat that one time. You know what I mean? But this is really good. These are tools, not rules. This is just, you pray into this, and you don't have to do exact. And this is what you said before. We're not getting rigid, that you may do this a little bit differently, but also doing it differently isn't wrong.
Yes,
And
exactly.
maybe
These are just general guidelines
Right.
of what I've found for myself, and God may call you to do something completely different, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I have fasted over my period before. I've fasted over ovulation before, and so it just depends on what the purpose of your fast is and what God has called you to. Just know that the way that He created you is beautiful, and it's okay that it's different, and everyone can fast differently for their specific body and their specific time in their life. Esther did a 3-day fast on a fasted day and night in the temple
Right.
all the time.
All the time.
Consistently. And so really it just depends on what God is calling you to, because He's going to give you the strength for that.
Yep.
And the clarity and the wisdom. We just have to be listening and surrender to His plans and purposes for us. Because fasting can be hugely beneficial in healing for your body as a man or a woman. And I would highly recommend it, because my body has gone through a ton of healing since we started fasting. So I would highly recommend fasting for you. Now you know some of the specifics. So I hope that inspires you to go and try fasting. Thank you so much for being here. We hope you enjoyed that episode, and we would love it if you shared this with your family and friends, and go talk to the women in your life and maybe fast together.
Go fast and be blessed.